Great to see everybody here today, and especially great to have a lot of our kiddos in the house today. Those who, let's see, I gotta unstretch here. Those who aren't camping, and those who aren't out in the wilderness, aren't on summer vacation, we're glad that you're here. So if we could have everybody who's like a child who's normally in Kids Kingdom but is in here today, could you guys stand up? Where are they? Yeah, all right. Okay. Fired up. All right, Uriah is standing on the pew there. He's fired up. I saw you moving just like your dad up there during that song. That's awesome. Future song leader in the house. I am really glad to be back here with the Southeast. It's been a while since I've been able to be with you. I think the last time I got to speak was during that Ephesians series. You remember that? We did Ephesians a while back. I really enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed that. But I am excited to hear the continued growth and inspiration and stories and good news about the faithfulness that keeps coming out of the Southeast and the campus and the integration. I know the campus kind of sits in this section, you know, the teens sit there, but we cross those boundaries, right? And get in there and fellowship with each other because we're like one big multi-generational family, like Frank talked about last week. And I hope you're getting to do that. I see the relationships growing more and more, and that's very inspiring. I'm excited in July, in case you didn't totally grasp this last week, but in July, we're going to have the entire city ministry start joining us for Sunday services. So that's going to be exciting. They're going to come in. I don't know where they're going to sit. You know, maybe they're going to sit in their own section, or maybe they'll just kind of spread throughout. But they're going to bring in a lot of singles and some young marrieds into that group. And they're so excited to be a part, again, of a multi-generational worship. They're going to add to our singing and our band. You know, we get to have them along with the great band and worship leaders that we have here. I think God is just going to bless this group more and more. And on that note, I have a special announcement to read. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Here it is. Whoa, that was kind of loud. Here it is. Okay, here it is. This is from Wade Cook, okay, regarding the city ministry. From the east I summon a bird of prey. This is actually from God first, Isaiah. From the east I summon a bird of prey. From a far off land, a man to fulfill my purpose. What I have said, that will I bring about. What I have planned, that will I do. For several months, the city ministry leadership, core group, and eldership of the Denver Church have been discussing the many options of transition for the city ministry. With Wade and Debbie Cook beginning their new roles with Hope Worldwide starting July 1st, there arose the obvious question of who would carry on the leadership of the city ministry and take care of the singles ministry at large in the Denver Church. After careful consideration and prayerful deliberation, we are excited to announce that Michael Gormley and Shelby Stephen have accepted our offer to serve in that capacity as full-time interns. Woo! It's exciting. Michael Gormley is a fantastic brother who has distinguished himself as one of the leading voices in the singles ministry. He's a substantive thinker, an obvious servant, and a man who cares deeply about God and his church. And he's going to be preaching here next Sunday, as you saw in the announcement earlier. Gormley, Ed. And more in the Denver church, more of you in the Denver church may know Shelby Stevens as one who was baptized at CU in Boulder in October of 2011. She, too, is a powerful young disciple who grew quickly in her faith and her ability to serve in key leadership roles within the campus ministry and the city ministry. And, of course, is one of the original mission team members to Grand Junction. They will both come on board officially July 1st, but will hit the ground running when each of them get home from the REACH conference. Please give them your support and prayers and keep them in prayer. Double prayer, as they begin this new and exciting chapter in their lives. So thank you all for your support of this. We're so excited that finally our singles ministry, it was working. Oh, not up there. Finally, our singles ministry is going to have singles leadership, okay, that we're going to have singles leading the singles ministry. So we're really excited. You're like, well, what did we have before? We had married people doing it, and we're really thankful for the married people doing it, and there's actually quite few singles ministries around the world in our fellowship who are led by actual singles. So we're so excited to reach this point, and Michael and Shelby are super excited to serve this way. And beginning in July after the Reach Conference, they and the whole City Singles Ministry and the whole City Ministry will be right here with us for our worship. So I hope you're just excited and feel the joy and confidence of being a part of a winning and growing team. You know, we can all learn lessons being a part of a losing team, but isn't it a lot more fun to learn lessons being a part of a winning team? So we're a part of a winning team. Memorial Day has passed. I don't know what you did for Memorial Day. Barry and I and our family went up to Steamboat Springs and had a little traditional family getaway there, but Memorial Day's passed. School's out. The sun is hot. Summer is officially upon us. What an exciting time summer is. For travel, vacations, summer school, boo, okay. Summer jobs, cookouts, hikes, exercise, all these kind of things. I want to ask you, what are your visions of activity this summer? What do you think of when you think of this summer? Kids, what do you think of when you think of this summer, I'm going to do this? Maybe you just think sleep, you know. That's what a lot of the teens think in preteen. I'm just going to sleep. Maybe that's all you're doing is sleeping. That's okay. That's a summer activity too. But what other things are you looking to do and are you excited about? What's your vision for summer activity? I think of like running trails. I love going back and running trails and fighting rattlesnakes back there in the backcountry. I like the idea of going scouting for elk season, okay, coming up in September, shooting my bow. There's all kinds of things I look forward to and activities for the summer, getting away with Barry a little bit. But even more important than your vision of activity this summer, I want you to think, what's your vision of spirituality this summer? That's a pastor question to ask, isn't it? Do you even think about that for the summer? Your vision of spirituality. Summer's such kind of a free time, a different time. Schedule's different. And it provides this, 2.5 or whatever, 3-month kind of chunk that's a good temporary thing. It's this unit. And so we can naturally think, by the end of the summer, I want to weigh this amount. I want to run this much. I want to do this much. I want to save this much money. We have goals like that. But what is your vision of who you can become spiritually this summer? What's your vision of spirituality? Reach, the Reach Conference in St. Louis is going to be a tremendous boost. How many are going to Reach? Wow, it's a lot of people. It's so inspiring to see so many in the Denver church. We're one of the highest concentrations of disciples in the world who's going to the Reach Conference. It's really encouraging to see that. And it's not too late if you're like on the edge or you just want to pray a little extra or ask some people for financial help. The more who can go, the better. Really, my greatest concern with Reach, because we're so involved in a lot of the planning, I get to see a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff. My greatest concern, I kid you not, is driving away or flying away on Sunday and then just saying, I wish more people from Denver had been there. I think that's the only regret that's going to be had. And I know that not everybody can make it and so forth. Everything's going to be recorded. That's awesome. But if there's a way you can go be with 15,000, 20,000 other disciples from around North America and the world, you will be inspired. So Reach is going to be a tremendous boost. But real spirituality isn't about events as much as it is about you and your relationship with God. So what's your vision for your relationship with God this summer? God has a great vision for you and for his relationship with you this summer. As we think about the vacations we want to go on, the trips we want to take, the activities we want to do, his real passion and vision is he just sits up there going, how close can I get to him this summer? How close can I get to Ed this summer? How close can I get to Lance this summer? How close can I really get to Jim this summer? How close can I get to Aaron this summer? That's the way God really thinks and dreams. He has a great vision for us. Today, I want to look at just one passage. It's just one, but it is kind of a dense one, and it's a little long. But it reveals God's incredible vision for his people. And what I really believe is what he's hoping will take place in his relationship with all of us and each of us individually this summer. Let's look at this passage. And it's kind of small to put up here on the screen. Hopefully you can see it. If not, you can read along. In Jeremiah 30, verse 17, God says, "But I will restore you to health and heal your wounds, declares the Lord. Because you are called an outcast, Zion, for whom no one cares." This is what the Lord says. "I will restore the fortunes of Jacob's tents and have compassion on his dwellings. The city will be rebuilt on her ruins, and the palace will stand in its proper place. From them will come songs of thanksgiving and the sound of rejoicing. I will add to their numbers, and they will not be decreased. I will bring them honor, and they will not be disdained. Their children will be as in days of old, and their community will be established before me. I will punish all who oppress them. Their leader will be one of their own. Their ruler will arise from among them. I will bring him near, and he will come close to me. For who is he who will devote himself to be close to me, declares the Lord. So you will be my people, and I will be your God." This is a great passage. What had happened here is God's people had been going through some really difficult times, some pretty intense discipline because of their own sin, their own faithlessness, and their own unfaithfulness. And God had allowed them to be scattered. That's really what God's wrath is. God's wrath is not so much, strike them with a lightning bolt, as much as just saying, I'm going to turn you over to reap the consequence of what your sinful actions have caused. I'm not going to block it anymore. No mercy. You're going to get what you deserve. You're going to reap the fruit of your ways. So he goes, okay, have at it. And that's where literally we get the phrase like all hell breaks loose. The absence of God and the fruit of the choices we make, we reap. That is by definition God's wrath. And it's also God's discipline. So God just lets them reap the consequences of the choices they made. And as a result, this great and powerful nation that dominated the known world at the time was scattered as a nation, separated from their family, separated from their brothers and sisters in the Lord. But even during that discipline, God had an incredible vision of how to restore them and bless them. And it just kind of gives me great comfort to know that that is the heart of God. That even when I'm messed up, and even when I'm kind of reaping the fruit of my own sin and my own bad consequences and things are not going well and I'm not feeling it with God, I have those times too. Even when we're like that, God is dreaming and scheming of how he can draw me near, how he can draw us near during times like that. I love it. And I love the imagery that he uses to describe his vision for his people, even at their most scattered, facing the consequence of their sin point. Look at some of these things he says about his vision for them. I'm going to restore you to health. I think about that. Last night we were at dinner with the Kims, and we were sharing just about some of the health challenges that I face. And I just, I don't want to go into it here, but we were sharing about some of that and the thought of just being restored to health. Just those who struggle with chronic pain, the value of a pain-free day. Like when you have one, you go, oh, I'm happy. Like this is how most people feel all the time. And you're just kind of extra excited. It's to be restored to your health is special. He goes on to say, I'm going to heal your wounds. I'm going to restore your fortunes. I'm going to have compassion on your dwellings. You look at your house, you're like, everybody needs compassion, the kindness of a Savior. My house needs a little help at my house. I'm going to have compassion on your dwelling. 2 years ago, Barry was praying. She's like, God, we need a new paint job so badly. I'm praying for hail. And I don't know if that's like fair to do. Insurance companies might think that's unrighteous or unethical, but she was praying for a mighty hailstorm from the Lord. And we got it and got our house all painted and everything. God had compassion on our dwelling through hail, and we appreciate that. He says, I will rebuild your city. They were living in ruins, and he said, I'm going to rebuild your city. Your palace will stand. There'll be songs of thanksgiving. There'll be the sound of rejoicing. I will add to your numbers. I will not decrease your numbers. Those in the ministry and leadership understand that. You go, yeah, we can add numbers one month and then they get decreased the next month. It's kind of interesting. God knows that. He goes, I'm going to add to your numbers and I'm not going to decrease your numbers. You're like, okay, that's good. He covers it from both sides. I will bring you honor. Your children will be as in days of old. Those of us old parents, don't you just kind of look at society and what our kids are going through in elementary school, middle school, and high school and just go, oh, man, it's not like the old days. And, some of that's true, some of it's not true, but I think a lot of it's true. Like things are just kind of getting bad out there. But I like this image that your children will be as in the days of old. I will establish your community. We all want a community, a family, a neighborhood, a church that's established. And then he just kind of says this protective thing, this bodyguard statement. I'm going to punish those who hurt you. You're like, thank you, God. I appreciate that. I got your back. I'm going to take care of the bad guys. You go, good. Got my 6. So you think of these visions that God has. It just comes out of his heart. He goes, here's what I want my people to be. And this was at their worst moment. He goes, this is what I really feel about you. This is what I want you to experience. And while I know God was addressing his people way back then, this is still his heart. It's his character. And I think he has similarly great and compassionate visions for all of us and each of us today. Barry and I get this unique privilege of serving on this international evangelist and women's ministry committees. There's like 17 couples from around the world that serve on that, and we get to help steer the ICOC. And we also serve on what's called the Global Missions Subcommittee. So we're kind of tasked with coming up with a global missions plan for how we're going to bring the gospel to as many people as we can, as quickly as we can throughout the world. And as such, we get to see and hear the incredible news and stories of what God is doing amongst his community, his people, our fellowship, the International Church of Christ, worldwide, all the time. We're just constantly inundated with this. And it's kind of things you just go, this is amazing. Blessed are the eyes that see what we see and the ears that hear what we hear. When we see 100 new churches planted in the last 5 years and hear stories of each one of those churches, not just a number, but these are cities that the gospel is being spread to. Over 100 new evangelists like Brian, one of 100, appointed in the last 5 years. Continued growth and in the numbers, increasing, not decreasing, for many years in a row in our fellowship worldwide. Now a soul being saved more often than every hour, round the clock, year-round, somewhere on the planet. This is just so exciting to see. It's exciting to see these visions, literally these things, being fulfilled in our day and age. And not just in a foreign land, though it's happening all over the world. We heard news about Vietnam and how that's happening in Vietnam, but now that's happening right here in Denver and right here throughout the Rocky Mountain region of churches. You just go, praise God. Next week, we're going to Grand Junction, and we're excited to go to Grand Junction. We're going to be speaking there for their 2nd anniversary service. It's hard to believe it's already the 2nd year of the church in Grand Junction being planted. Brian went there recently and preached, and here's a little picture of the church. They meet in a coffee shop, and you can see you see Steve O'Day right in the center there. He's rocking the beard right now, and Cameron next to him. You see some of the other mission team members and new converts and guests, but they meet in this coffee shop. They rent it out every Sunday, and it's just grown from this tiny little group to, standing room only on Sunday in this coffee shop. It's amazing what God has done. It's this passage that we're looking at being fulfilled in Grand Junction. God is just blessing us. In addition to all that grand, big stuff, I'm sure God has incredible personal vision for your life, for your kids, for your family. That's just the kind of God he is. At your worst moment are his best visions and dreams of who you can become. God's just with us. God's guiding us. God's blessing us. And he has so much more in store for all of us and each of us. So we ask in this summer, as we look ahead to his visions, Well, is there something we can do to expedite his visions? As he describes his vision in this passage, is there something he reveals that we could do to make it not just kind of religious speak on Sunday, but to make it a reality that we really appreciate and enjoy and experience? Well, there is. The verse goes on to share this most crucial link in fulfilling the chain of God's vision. He says their leader will be one of their own. Their ruler will arise from among them. I will bring him near, and he will come close to me. For who is he who will devote himself to be close to me? God shares the vision, all hinging on the kind of man or woman that he's going to bless in that community. As a servant in the church and one who's called to be the senior minister of the church, man, I take this super seriously. It challenges me to the core to be that kind of a man. I take it seriously, but I don't take it solely, because it's not meant for just me. See, we're all leaders in some way, shape, or form. We're leaders in the church. We're leaders in Kids Kingdom. We're leaders in the workplace. We're leaders in our family. We're leaders in our classroom. We're leaders in the neighborhoods. We're leaders in every level of the community in some way, shape, or form. We're all called to lead people and to lead for God and to lead people to God. And so the one quality he's looking for in all of us as leaders to influence and bless the communities that we're leading all over, according to those incredible qualities we looked at, the one quality he's looking for in us is someone who will devote himself to being close to God. You want to fulfill all of the visions God has for you? One thing you got to do: devote yourself to being close to him. I think about each of those words: devote, devote, to give one's time, focus one's efforts, commit oneself entirely to a certain matter. Himself, oneself, a single individual. You, close, intimate, bonded, no distance between. This is what God is calling for each of us to do. It's our action. He has the vision. But he goes, here's the hinge. Here's the pivot point on which it all either happens or doesn't. Will you devote yourself to being close to him? As we think about this summer, the biggest appeal I want to give you this summer is to make this kind of a personal theme. You want to be close to God. You know, at the end of the summer, I may or may not hit my weight goals. Usually not. I don't know if I ever do, you know. I think I did once like 10 years ago or something. But I may or may not hit my running goals. I may or may not hit my target shooting goals with my bow and arrow. But I go, if there's one thing I can do by the end of the summer to be closer to God than I am right now, man, that is the umbrella under which all the shower of blessings come. That's got to be our number one goal. So I want to give you two practical charges for all of us, for each of us, for me, for you, to be close to God this summer. First, pursue closeness. Pursue closeness with God. I was talking to Brian Campbell the other day, and for some reason, we were talking about Michael Jackson. Oh, I was doing my playlist. We were going bow fishing. And on the way up there, I'm like, hey, let's listen to my playlist instead of yours, because I don't know any of his songs. And he knows mine because they're like his dad's music or something like that. So we put it in there, and there's like Michael Jackson as, you know, beat it, or something like that, or Billie Jean, something like that. And he's like, you like Michael Jackson? I go, yeah. And I go, you know, I saw Michael Jackson in concert. He goes, you did? And I thought I told him the story, but he didn't remember it or pretended he didn't. You know, the older you get, you think people pretend that they don't don't hear your story. That's what I did with my dad. I'm like, yeah, oh, that's a good story, Dad. I've heard it 10 times, And maybe that's how it is with Brian. But he placated me and listened to my story. But we were in Bangkok, and we just got into Bangkok, and there's a wealthy brother in the church that wanted to kind of treat us special, and he gave us 2 tickets to see Michael Jackson in concert in Thailand. How cool is that? Who gets to see Michael Jackson in Bangkok? And then he gave us an extra ticket to take the nanny of Jana, who lived with us, a sister she's from the province. She never got to do anything like that. And he gave us the really expensive tickets. I saw the price tag. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be awesome. So he took this afternoon off of school. We were in Thai language school, and this is the big day. We're going to go see Michael. And G is the name of the girl who's with us. She calls him Maiken. In Thai, the final L you pronounce as an N. Maiken Jackson. We're going to go see Maiken Jackson. And so we get off this afternoon and we take a cab. But the cab could only go so far to the big stadium. It's an outdoor stadium. And the cab could only go so far because it was so flooded. The streets were uber flooded that day. So we had to get out and walk the last mile. And we're walking through water mid-thigh, some places deeper. You can't see where the manhole, are. And sometimes people take the manhole cover. So you're feeling, as you walk. And we walk all the way there to the stadium. And then there's a sign, it's closed. The concert, the stadium's closed because of floods. It's been delayed to tomorrow. We're like, well, at least it's not canceled. So we walk all the way back. We couldn't get a cab even after the mile. I had to walk all the way home. We get home and we're like, okay, tomorrow we're going to go see Michael Jackson. And she's so excited to see him. So we get off school again the next day and we get there. Okay, we can take a cab all the way this time. We go inside and they put visqueen, thick plastic over the entire field. It's like a football stadium. They put it over the entire field because it was so soggy. So we're walking across it. It's kind of like walking on a waterbed, just walking like that. And we got our tickets and we're like, where are our seats? And I'm looking for the best seats in the house. And they're like, you're there. And we're on the field in the mosh pit. I'm like, that's the most expensive seat. I'm like, I'd rather have the cheap seats up there in the bleachers than be down front in the mosh pit. But we were really close. We're as close as from me to Todd, to Michael Jackson, and he hadn't come out yet. But we're right there. It was kind of awesome at first. Then the crowd started pouring in, and we're sloshing on this visqueen waterbed. And the crowds are getting so thick and pressed up against us that Barry and G and I had to lock our elbows like this just to kind of keep from getting torn away. And we're doing this, moving. And G comes up to about here on me. She is not a tall woman. She comes up to about here. And so her back, we're in the expensive area, so it's almost all foreigners. So everyone's way taller than me. And they're in front of us. We can't see very good, but I can make out a little bit. G, her back is right, her face is right into the back of the guy in front of her. Then it starts getting so hot and it's so humid from all the water and being trapped under the visqueen and stuff like that. People are passing out. So they come out with this plan that they shoot this fire hose from the stage to cool down the audience. And I don't know if that helped or not. That wasn't working. So they started throwing, those little cannons that shoot T-shirts? They're shooting ammonia-soaked cotton balls. Boom! 40 cotton balls come out to sniff to keep you from passing out. And so people are snorting the cotton ball and passing to the people next to them. You're everybody's getting high on ammonia or whatever it was. And we're this is crazy. And G's I want to see Michael Jackson so bad. Well, then finally, after all the preliminary band stuff, Michael comes out super late. And there's Michael and everybody's cheering. And we're kind of half passing out. And G, I look over her. She can't see anything. And I go, okay, I got an idea, G. She's I want to see Michael so bad. So we took 2 of the big cups. We had bought those big plastic $8 cups, of Coke. And they said Michael Jackson on it. We took 2 of them, set them on the ground. And Barry and I each grabbed an arm. She put her feet on him and jumped up and got one glimpse of Michael Jackson. Then the crowd pushed so hard, we lost G. We never saw her again. We're where'd G go? She drifted down People Current somewhere. And she got swept away, literally. And we were we watched the rest of Michael Jackson. We're that's awesome. We went home afterwards. We're where's G? We looked all over the stadium. Well, she was at home. She had jumped up in the air, got pulled away, fainted, and then a policeman dragged her out, and a policeman was kind enough to take her home, to our home. And she's at home alone. She's I just woke up on the side. People were all over me, but a policeman got me. And I'm well, gee, how are you doing? She goes, I got to see my gun. And she was so excited. She got one little 3-second glimpse of my gun, and it made her life. She was like so fired up about it. So when I think about G, she was pursuing closeness to my gun. She's willing to overcome the crowds. She's willing to jump up on cups. She's willing to be passed out and faint and dragged away and taken in a squad car just to have a little glimpse of Michael Jackson. What's your attitude about pursuing closeness to the Almighty God of the universe? Are you seeking God in His Word? Pursuing closeness in prayer? Pursuing closeness in nature? Pursuing closeness in worship? Pursuing closeness with God's people? So you can do all those things but not really be pursuing closeness. It's different to do them all. I'm having a quiet time to pursue closeness. I'm going to church to pursue closeness. I'm going for a walk in the woods to pursue closeness. On this run, this trail run, I'm going to pursue closeness. Pursue closeness by doing those things and get rid of anything that stands between you and a closer walk with God. If there's some person in front of you, knock them out of the way so you can get a glimpse of God. If there's some sin in the way that's dogging you, stop it. Just stop it. Just go, this isn't worth it. It's clouding my vision of God. If there's some passion that's distracting and dividing your heart, and you're thinking about it more than God, put it on hold. Give it a rest. Just keep to a path far from it for a while so you can focus on God. If there's stress in the way, or laziness in the way, or some idol in the way, just knock it out of the way so you can pursue closeness with God. Teens, you're going to be going to teen camp. You can go to teen camp for all the activities. That's cool. That's fun. All your friends. But if you go kind of beneath that, you go, I'm going to pursue a closeness with God. You get a whole different experience at camp. College students going to the ICMC. Those of us going to Reach. It's one thing to go, 15,000 people, and you dive into the mosh pits. Another thing going, I want to see Jesus. I want to see God. For all of us, make your relationship with Him and intimacy with Him your top priority this summer. Not an afterthought. Give it your first burst of energy, not the leftovers. Pursue closeness. And finally, to be close to God, follow closely. Pursue closeness, but then follow closely. I remember as a kid, we used to go backpacking and hiking and camping all the time. And I remember doing it one time when this early season snowstorm kind of swept into the Shenandoah Valley where we were backpacking in Virginia. And we were all hiking. There's 8 of us. And I was right behind my dad because it was so cold, it was so windy, that if I could get right behind him in this line of our family, he was like a great wind block. And it was like a lot warmer right behind Dad. And I was really small. My pack frame, all I would carry in it was my sweatshirt. So it's just, I'd have a sweatshirt stuck in there, and my pack frame would rub on the ground. I was about like Uriah right there. And I'm hiking like this, and we're going through snow, and I found that the closer I could be to my dad, the warmer I would be, the less wind would catch me in the face. And if I could reach out and put my feet in his footprints, it was a lot easier walking. If I had to trudge through the snow like that, then it was a lot harder for me to walk because the snow was getting kind of deep. It was hard to reach for his footprints, but if I could do it, then man, I could move a lot faster. And I learned that the closer I was to my dad, and the more closely I could put my feet in his exact footsteps, the easier the hike was. It's the same in our followership of Jesus. You can't be close to God if you're not following the Son of God super closely. The closer you are to his back, and the more your feet are in his footprints, the more smoothly life goes. You start to let distance get between you and Jesus in your discipleship. And you're starting to trudge through some snow. You're starting to feel the cold wind in your face. And then the more that hits you, the more you kind of get fatigued and the more distance it creates and the more life just kind of derails. But the closer you are, sometimes you just got to run up there and get caught up and just start putting your feet in the right places. Then things just work. That's what this theme of summer is a great opportunity to do. To just go, man, it's time for me to start following Jesus more closely. Remember where Jesus says, where I am, there my servant also will be. John writes, whoever claims to live in him must do what? Walk as Jesus did. Remember how it says, Peter began to follow at a distance. It says all the disciples were around Jesus. This is, toward the end during the passion, like toward the crucifixion. All the disciples were around him. Then it says, but Peter followed at a distance. He just started kind of getting out of sync, just drifting. He'd been the guy first to jump out of the boat. He'd been the guy first to whack off a guy's ear. He was like the man. He was the closest to following Jesus. But something happened, and he just started following at a distance. And then eventually that distance just led to denial. You want to get close to God? You got to just get caught back up. There's no easy way to do it. You got to suck it up and get caught back up and just stay tight with him. How closely are you following Jesus? His heart, his word, his passion, his priorities, his principles, his purity, his people, his purpose. In what ways are you drifting the most? In what one area is there the most distance between you and Jesus? See, sometimes for me, I can be like really close in this area. I'm like, man, I'm doing awesome in prayer. But my Bible study, I'm drifting. Or I'm doing great in Bible study and prayer, but my purity's drifting. Usually there's an area that I'm kind of getting faked out about, and there's distance being created. Are you increasing the distance between you and God at this point in your life, or decreasing it? Are you closing the gap or creating the gap? When you think about where you were as a young Christian, you go, oh man, back there in the campus ministry days, it was like me and Jesus. And now are you just kind of slowly drifting over the years? And you kind of wonder like, am I going to make it till the end before I just fall off? You ever wonder how like people who've been disciples 20 years, you just go, what happened to them? What happened to their marriage? What happened to their soul? They just like got bitter, they got hard and they fell away. There was some distance that started little by little. And then it eventually just became so big, they're like, you know what? I can't fake it anymore. Stay close to Jesus. Follow closely. See, some have drifted and you know it. Others have drifted. They're not following us closely, and they don't even know it. They try to justify it. We all need to follow Jesus as closely as possible, because ultimately, he is the way, the truth, and the life. And there's no other way to get to heaven than to follow him closely. Maybe you recognize you're not a true Christian. The ultimate step in following Jesus is saying, Jesus is Lord, and being baptized into Christ. That's when you just like grab onto Jesus and you're like walking in his steps. That's when it begins. Teens, what stands between you if you're not a true Christian and that point that you just go, man, I'm going to totally sync up with Jesus? Maybe you're a guest as a college student, you're studying the Bible, you go, I don't know if I'm a real disciple. Man, what stands in the way? Just deciding to become one today. Adults, maybe you're studying the Bible and you're like, yeah, I need to become a Christian, but what? Life only works when you're following closely. For all of us, summer's a great time to go, you know what, let me just get right from day one. Close the gap, follow closely. God has great visions for our church. He has great visions for you, for your family, for your family group, for your community. He has great visions for your life. He wants to restore you to health. He wants to heal your wounds. He wants to restore your fortunes. Have compassion on your dwellings. Rebuild your city. He wants your palace to stand. He wants to hear from your heart songs of thanksgiving. He wants to hear from your homes the sounds of rejoicing. He wants to add to your numbers. He doesn't want to decrease your numbers. He wants to bring you honor before the angels in heaven. He wants your children to be as in the days of old. He wants to establish your community. And anybody messes with you, he wants to take them out. He wants to punish those who hurt you. All that he's asking for you to make all that happen is to be that man or woman that says, I will be the one who devotes myself to being close to you, God. I'm not going to wait for other people to do it for me. I'm not going to blame other people for not giving it to me. I will devote myself to being close to God this summer. Pursue closeness. Follow closely. And you're going to have an incredible summer of enjoying all the blessings of God's vision for your life. God bless you.